Hi guys, welcome to my channel. How are y'all doing today? And happy Pride Month. So here today on I Be the Witch, we are going to be celebrating Pride Month, and we are going to be talking about my queerness, and we are also going to touch on how it affects my witchcraft a little bit. If you weren't already aware, I will be on Jasmine Ambrosia's Pride panel along with some other LGBT witches. We will be discussing our queerness and how it affects or pertains to our magical practice, and just gathering together and celebrating Pride Month as queer witches, and I'm really looking forward to that. I've definitely briefly discussed my queerness here on my YouTube channel before. However, with it being officially Pride Month and that Pride panel coming up, I figured I would make a video talking about it a little bit more in depth. Why not? I'm not going to talk too much about how it really affects my witchcraft. I don't want to get too much into that because I want to save that for the panel. I want to save that for Jasmine's live discussion. But yeah, I'll tap on that towards the end of the video. The first thing that I wanted to talk about was my sexual orientation, and that is being bisexual. I'm wearing my bisexual pride shirt, the bisexual colors. Bisexual means being attracted to more than just one gender. It doesn't just mean being attracted to only the two cisgenders. It's an older label that has definitely evolved and developed a more updated definition. It definitely means being attracted to pretty much all genders. I mean, I've been attracted to non-binary, trans folks, male, female. So bisexual, yes, it has the word bi in it, but it's definitely, it means something very different now. I think that it used to mean being attracted to male and female because that's just the way society in general used to think, honestly, before we really got to know other genders, and before other gender identities were in the light. So as that has become more in the light and we have learned more about genders and people are coming out as other gender identities, bisexual has also taken on a whole new meaning. Basically, being bisexual to me and to any bisexual person I've ever talked to, it basically just means being attracted to more than just one gender. That's it. It means being attracted to all genders. We're gender inclusive. Now, there is another label in the LGBT community called pansexual, which is also being attracted to all genders. I really think that bisexual and pansexual are pretty much the same thing nowadays. Bisexual is just an older label. Next, I wanted to talk about my gender identity, which is way more complicated. My gender identity is gender fluid flux. Not a lot of people know this because I present, for the past 2 or 3 years, however long I've been here on YouTube, I've presented as cis female pretty much. But I am gender fluid flux. I do not identify as being a cis woman. Gender fluid flux basically just means I go back and forth between the genders male and female. Fluid flux, you can go back and forth between non-binary and female, non-binary and male. For me, it's going back and forth between male and female. That's the fluidity. And the flux part is feeling different intensities of that gender throughout that fluidity. Okay, so therefore I'm gender fluid flux. This label has been a newer discovery for me, just the label. However, I have gone back and forth between male and female my entire life. When I was a kid and I felt like I was a boy, and I felt more boy than girl, I never really questioned it. I just kind of, I don't know. I never really questioned it until I got a little bit older. Even as a kid, I presented as a boy a lot. I dressed like a boy a lot. My family has memories of me trying to use the boys' restroom. And we always kind of just like, I feel like my family always just thought, oh, she's just a tomboy, which definitely isn't the case. It was definitely a lot more than that, and it still is, obviously. This went on for a while with pockets of feeling female. I call it pockets. You know, I'll go through a phase of feeling male with pockets of female, and I'll go through phases of feeling female with pockets of male. It's not always just, it's not ever just black and white. Again, there's that fluidity and the flux, the different intensities of feeling that gender. Once I got more into high school and college, I started feeling very female. Still having no idea that I was gender fluid flux. And then after that, I started going back to feeling more male and presenting more male. And I even questioned if I was trans, because at this point I still had no idea that I was gender fluid flux. I had never even heard of the label gender fluid flux. Now for the past 3 years, I have felt so female that up until recently I felt like, well, maybe I just have been female this whole time and just didn't want to embrace her because of other reasons I won't get into. But I finally have realized, with pockets of male flux coming back, that I'm not cis female, I'm not non-binary. I went through that too, thinking I was non-binary. And I am not trans, I am gender fluid flux. And it feels really good to finally understand a little bit more what my gender identity is. My gender identity is still really confusing though, and I'm still unraveling it and getting to know it, because it's really confusing, it's complicated, and I'm just going with gender fluid flux. That describes me the best. Not that I need a label. I don't need a label, but it feels good to feel validated by something. It feels good to know that I'm not just this very confused individual, that other people like me exist. It feels good to know there's a community out there that include people like you. You know, it can be validating. It can be reassuring and comforting. So some other things just to wrap up my gender identity. I still very much identify as woman. I'm just not a cis woman. And what I mean by that is, I know, like, I'm not a fool. Even when I'm feeling more male, I know that people around me, society around me, perceives me as female. So if I'm going to be perceived that way, there's a part of me that still identifies that way. I know that's really complicated. I just don't identify with being a cis woman. I hope that makes sense. And it's okay if it doesn't. It doesn't have to make sense. My pronouns are she, he, they. I go by all three. I'm used to being called she. I'm used to being called they. I've been called male from people who weren't doing it, and like, they weren't doing it because they knew that was one of my pronouns. I've been called he because I was presenting as a male more. So I don't know. I'm okay with all three. It doesn't matter to me. Also, one other thing too is I have finally figured out too that masculinity and femininity to me are just energies. They have nothing to do with my gender. Even when I'm feeling more male, I still feel very feminine. So those are just energies, those aren't genders to me. Now I want to talk a little bit about my queerness and how it has affected my spirituality and my witchcraft. Now, like I said, I don't want to get super into this because I want to save a lot of it for Jasmyne's live coming up. I do want to bring it up a little bit. I would say that my queerness affected my spirituality way more back before I was an active witch, for sure. And that it really made me feel like I was going to suffer in hell. I was terrified of going to hell. I thought it was wrong. because of my spirituality and what my spirituality taught me, because of my religion that I grew up in. And a lot of people say, oh, it's not the church's fault, it's not the church's fault. Well, that's fine. In my experience, it was. My church, my religion definitely taught me that I was going to burn in hell. Do I remember anyone saying like verbatim, like, oh, are you attracted to females? Oh, you feel male, you're going to hell. No, but inherently that's what the sermons taught me, talking in youth group taught me, etc., etc. I just kind of picked up on it, like, oh, this is wrong of me. I don't really know exactly how that started to happen, but I know that it had to do with going to church, and it had to do with the religion that I was raised in, and things that I was taught through those things. Going through puberty and knowing that I was attracted to women in particular, I questioned whether or not I was gay. I thought I was doing the wrong thing. I thought it was my fault. If anything, now being an active witch has taught me that none of these things are wrong, and has liberated me and made me feel a lot more free. And I no longer have the fear that I'm going to suffer in hell because of my gender identity or my sexual orientation. Being an active witch is also the thing that is responsible for teaching me that masculinity and femininity are energies, and that they have nothing to do with my gender identity. They have nothing to do with gender itself. And because of that, it's made me learn even more about my gender identity. So I really have my witchcraft and my paganism to thank for that, to thank for a lot of that. So that is all I have for today, guys. Happy Pride Month. I hope to see you all at the queer panel, the Queer Witches panel on Jasmine Ambrosia's channel. I think I'll be able to stream it live on my channel as well if you'd like to join there instead. So that is all I have for today, guys. Until next time, I hope you stay very well, and don't forget to follow the snake. Love you. Bye. Since, you know, it's Pride Month, and oh, there are a lot of fruit flies.